Welcome to Tuesday night. It's really good to have you here. I don't know if you heard about this manhunt, but lock your doors, especially if you're in Southern California. And if you're CNS in Mexico, the fugitive could be there too. In fact, that's kind of where people think a potential first-degree murderer may be. So here's the story. If you joined us last night, Yolanda Marodi is the one here in the middle with the earrings, okay? That one on the right is her wife, Rebecca Marodi. Past tense, was her wife. Because Rebecca, on Ring doorbell cam, was seen being chased by this woman in the middle with a knife and blood, begging for her life. Suddenly, Yolanda is the only one to come out of the house. Rebecca dies at the scene. So the manhunt is a woman hunt, and it is on fiercely. U.S. Marshals are involved. Mexican authorities are involved. They saw the vehicle that woman got into on the Ring doorbell cam crossing the border. Did she cross back? Because if there's one thing I know about a manhunt, folks, the one who's being hunted gets super desperate. Gets harder and harder to stay under the radar. We're in the digital age. We're in the age of cameras. And they start to need things, and things come from us. We're going to update you with some brand new information, including how brutal the stabbing was, and also text messages the next day that the fugitive sent to a friend. Oops, I think I heard her. Not good when she's caught, if she's caught. Also, it's been a year. If you'd asked me, I would have said maybe 6 months, but it's been a year since Ruby Franke was hauled off to jail. Remember the mom influencer who told us all to be tough on our kids, but took it to the extremes with hers when cameras weren't rolling? She wasn't just spanking kids. She was tying them up and putting cayenne pepper on their wounds and then lacing that with masking tape until one of them escaped and saved the other, and the others are talking. Now, an 11-year-old is speaking out, not just to us, to tell us what it was like living under Ruby. She's also speaking out to the legislature of her state about doing things on camera with kids, making money at it as an influencer, and then using those kids as indentured servants, especially when they get injured and they end up with nothing. You'll be amazed at the power this 11-year-old has in her voice. You're going to hear it. And did you hear about the one at Princeton? It's not usually, Princeton is not normally brought up in my true crime show. But tonight, Princeton is the scene of something they'd rather not be. A really horrific stabbing and beating murder of like a soccer star. You know, like these boys, the soccer star is beat to death and stabbed to death. And the suspect they get is his own big brother. They go to Wesleyan and Michigan. Like they've got these wonderful pasts and upbringings and universities. And here they are as young adults. And the big brother is arrested at Princeton. And there's the mugshot. Big difference from, the co-ed church, the university, rah-rah, and then this. I'm going to give you all the details and ask the question, if this is him, what set him off? What on earth could make a big brother kill a little brother like that? Let me start here, though, because I don't think everybody is ever again going to consider Yolanda Marodi a catch. But this girl really needs to get caught. We first told you about her last night, the California woman accused of stabbing her wife to death after 2 years of marriage. And that wife was a hero. Rebecca Marodi was captain of a fire unit that bravely fought the LA wildfires last month. In a social media post on Valentine's Day, Yolanda, the fugitive, called Rebecca her angel. But we now know that the trouble was already brewing in the relationship when that post went out. According to an arrest warrant from San Diego County, Captain Rebecca Marodi had told Yolanda days earlier that she was ending their marriage and leaving her. So just after Valentine's Day, 3 days to be exact, Yolanda allegedly ended her angel's life. Around 9 p.m. on Feb 17th, Rebecca's mother, who lived with the couple on the property, dialed 911. First responders found Rebecca bleeding out from knife wounds to her neck, her chest, her abdomen, and Rebecca died right there at the scene. Her mom promptly turned over the ring cam footage, appearing to show Yolanda chasing Rebecca across the patio. Rebecca, the victim, appears to have blood on her back and is heard yelling, "Yolanda, please, I don't want to die." Yolanda is holding a knife and has blood on her arms. She apparently responds, "You should have thought of that before." Video allegedly shows her forcing Rebecca inside the house, and then within minutes, Yolanda reappears alone, wearing different clothes. She grabs her pets, the luggage, and then the warrant says she vanishes. She takes a 2013 Chevy Equinox with her, California plates on it. And there's more. Police say a, quote, known associate of Yolanda's reported that they received a text the next day from Yolanda, and it said, quote, "Becky came home and told me she was leaving me. She met someone else. All of her messages were lies. We had a big fight, and I hurt her. I'm sorry." And for now, the story seems to end right there. Yolanda Maro is on the run, presumably in Mexico right now. Homeland Security caught that Chevy Equinox crossing the border. But I would be remiss if I did not tell you the backstory here. And is there ever a backstory? Like it's the whole story if it weren't for this story. This bloody scenario has happened before, 25 years ago. But at that time, the victim was Yolanda's husband. And it was Yolanda who was ending the marriage. Rather than wait for her messy divorce to resolve, she resolved it for good with a knife, just like now. And just like now, her spouse died, and just like now, Yolanda went on the run. Back then, she took the couple's 2 children with her. She only stayed gone for about a day before she turned herself in. She was charged with murder, but she pleaded out. She pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter, and she served just 9 years in prison. She's been free since 2013, after which she met Rebecca and married Rebecca. I want to bring in Robert Almonte. He is a former U.S. Marshal and former Deputy Chief of the El Paso Police Department. Also with me, Dave Ehrenberg, former State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Robert, if I can start with you, what are they doing right now? If they've seen that Chevy cross the border, what are the U.S. Marshals doing right now to find this woman?
Well, thank you for having me. And absolutely, United States Marshals are aggressively looking for her with assistance probably from the FBI and also assistance from their law enforcement counterparts in Mexico. So what the United States Marshal Service has done with previous fugitives is they've been able to track them, locate them, and direct Mexican authority to location of the fugitive because the Marshal Service or any U.S. law enforcement agency are not allowed. We don't have jurisdiction in Mexico, so we can't arrest them. So the arrest will actually be made by Mexican authorities. So I can tell you right now, the United States Marshal Service is following up on leads, on phone numbers, associates of the subject. And I think it's just a matter of time before they locate her and arrest her. But I have to say this. I think one of 2 things is going to happen. And you mentioned this earlier at the start of your show. That is, they're desperate. There's no doubt that Yolanda is extremely desperate. She's been through this before. She's killed before. I don't see her turning herself in. I think she's in Mexico. One of 2 things is going to happen. She will be apprehended alive or she'll commit suicide.
Wow. And hopefully, if that happens, her body's found so that it isn't an active manhunt and an open murder investigation, for long. Dave, that brings me to you. 25 years ago, same blueprint, same result, same action, fleeing after a murder, but a plea bargain. And this is where I ask the question, how can she get a plea bargain that puts her away for only 9 years when she clearly has the propensity to do it again? Or is it just one of those things you just have to roll the dice? It's how our system's built.
Ashleigh, every case is judged on its own merits. At that point, I guess she had no prior rap sheet, and it was voluntary manslaughter she pled to, so not murder. So the sentencing guidelines was probably around what she got, which was around, I think, 11 years. She only served 9 years of that. Now we can see that was the wrong sentence, because here's someone that allegedly did it again. And this time the court system won't be as forgiving if she's caught. I think she will be spending the rest of her life in prison. Unfortunately, she got out too soon so she could commit this crime again, allegedly. But she's not going to get a third bite at the apple, because I think if she's found, she'll be incarcerated forever.
I mean, it's maddening. You see that picture of Rebecca Marodi. She's a firefighter hero, having just risked her life for all those weeks in LA fighting the Eaton fire, which was the worst of them, only to have this happen within days of the fires, ending. Robert, at this point, I do not know if Yolanda has Mexican roots. I do not know if she has associates or any family in Mexico, but I assume as a layman that is what the marshals are digging up right now.
Oh, absolutely. That's the first thing they're looking at. They're looking for all her associates or her family, any relatives anywhere in Mexico. And if they do locate them, they're going to be questioning those relatives, those associates, those friends. And it's just, like I said, it's just a matter of time. But this is a basic investigation for the United States Marshal Service. This is what they do. This is the bread and butter. And the Marshal Service is known for going after the worst of the worst. And there's no doubt she falls into this category.
Dave, if they do bring her in alive, my assumption is that they do take into account prior bad acts, and she will never, ever, ever get a plea offered. And in fact, would they bring in that prior bad act well, it looked like a murder, it was pled to manslaughter, as part of the length of sentencing that they'll seek?
The only way it comes into her trial, Ashleigh, is if she takes a stand, which she's not going to do. So that won't come into a trial. I do suspect she'll try to plead guilty to avoid spending the rest of her life in prison, but that's her fate. She's going to get that. And prosecutors are going to be reluctant to even ask a judge to admit into evidence her prior case. And that's because they don't need it. They've got a video. They have a confession where she wrote a friend just days afterwards that she did it. So they've got her dead to rights. They don't need to risk having a conviction overturned on appeal by bringing in this prior bad act, which if a judge admits it, then it puts any future conviction in jeopardy. I assume it will be kept out, but the prosecutors don't need it. They've got overwhelming evidence already.
So this is where I want to play devil's advocate. And again, I'm not as good at this as you are, but I've been to a few of these rodeos. And prior bad acts, if they are a beautiful pattern wrapped up in a bow, are usually very admissible. And I cannot think of anything that is any different from murder number 1 to murder number 2, which is stabbed to death, flees and grabs whatever they can on the way out. Pets, luggage, children, car. So isn't that just like the perfect example of the prior bad act that is legally admissible, and fight it all you want, but it matches the rules?
You'd be a great prosecutor, Ashleigh. This is like her fingerprint. It's her MO, and it could conceivably be brought in. It's up to the judge. But I would warn the prosecutors from pushing this, because you don't need it. And if the judge admits it, then an appellate court in California could say, yeah, that's propensity evidence. You can't prove that she did it this time because she did something terrible that's similar last time. The conviction is overturned and they have to do it over again. They don't need that. They got enough on her this time.
So, Robert, I should have probably led with this, but I sort of think of it as an afterthought when I think about the U.S. Marshals. They take the lead. If they're working this in Mexico with their counterparts in Mexico, does the FBI have a part in this? And if so, what is it?
Well, there's been previous cases where the United States Marshals are looking or pursuing fugitives in Mexico, and the FBI is there more in assist mode, and basically working the investigation concurrently. And the FBI would be providing any information they may have obtained as to the relatives, any associates or friends of the subject, and providing that to the Marshal Service. But as far as pinpointing the location of the fugitive, that'll be the United States Marshal Service that does that.
So I want to pop up that picture right there again. If you look closely, you can see it looks like she may have 2 full sleeves of tattoos, very, very colorful tattoos, because she's wearing them with the dress and she's got them with that jumper as well. So that's a really good, hint for anybody who may have seen her, anyone who might see her. We stream all over the world. So if you're watching this show, you happen to be in Mexico, that is who we're looking for. If you think you've seen this woman, there's a $1,000 reward right now being offered. Anybody with information is asked to call authorities, the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. I actually have that number for you. I'll read it out. 858-285-6330. And again, just take a screenshot of the TV right now. If you know anything about Yolanda Marodi's whereabouts, give that number a call, 858-285-6330. Robert Almonte and Dave Ehrenberg, thank you so much for your insight. Let's get together again, hopefully when she's caught.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Coming up on this program, Ruby Franke, the mommy blogger who made her life for her children absolute hell. She is 1 year into her prison sentence right now, and those kids are finally speaking out about the horrible physical abuse they suffered in private, but also the emotional scars from living their lives like this in public. I'll tell you what they're saying and the good that they're hoping is going to come of it when we come back.
Save 50% site-wide on America's best steaks, chicken, burgers, and more. All backed by our 100% guarantee. Right now, you'll get 12 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
Icy hot. Ice works fast. Heat makes it last. Feel the power of contrast therapy, so you can rise from pain. Icy hot.
Last week marked 1 year since Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt were hauled off to prison for the torture that they inflicted on 4 of Ruby's 6 children. Ruby was an influencer, a mom influencer. Jody was her partner/therapist/fellow abuser of those kids. The kids were made into co-stars of Ruby's wildly successful YouTube series, 8 Passengers. At its peak, that show had 2.5 million subscribers and earned the Frankes $100,000 a month. The show espoused the benefits of strict parenting, which we now know Ruby Franke took to horrendous extremes when the cameras were not rolling. We know that she would tie her kids up, or she'd lock them in the basement, or she'd make them sleep outside in the cold if they failed in some completely pointless task like sitting against the wall. She would withhold food to dangerous levels. And at least once, she chopped off all of her daughter's hair for daring to eat. When the police finally rescued the youngest kids, after one of the kids escaped to a neighbor's house, they were emaciated with infected cuts on their legs and sores on their feet. Duct tape was wrapped around their wrists and ankles. All of this and more is being highlighted in a Hulu docuseries called Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke.
Our entire schedule revolved around YouTube. It felt more like a set than a house.
She just wanted to show the view of a Mormon happy family, but they only saw what we wanted to show them.
Sit her down on the flipping couch. Okay, move it. If I hear one more word, get out.
The devil knocked, and we opened the door.
Through all of this, Kevin Franke, Ruby's husband, was the invisible man. He denied ever knowing the extent of what his kids were going through, and he was never charged with a crime. He's now in the process of divorcing Ruby, and while he isn't yet her ex-husband, he is going very public, and he's calling on Utah lawmakers to protect children in the future from being used as financial pawns by their influencer parents. He says he regrets ever putting his kids online. And his now 11-year-old daughter agrees. This is what she writes. Thought you'd want to hear it. I thought nothing was wrong. I felt happy, but I really wasn't. When I started getting older, I realized the YouTube channel had ruined my childhood. But at least I got some money, right? Oh, right. I actually didn't, because my mom withdrew all of it in 2023. I worked hard for that money. I acted like someone I wasn't in front of the camera, and I earned that money. But I feel like my mom used me for money. The 11-year-old continues saying, you all might be saying right now that my dad told me to say these things and is using me, but that is not true. If anyone is using their kids, it's the YouTubers filming them for money. I know I am stuck with the trauma of YouTube. Even now, I can barely make friends because my whole life I was the center of attention. But now, without even realizing it, I seek attention from others, or I feel like they don't like me. Then those people think I'm mean. The bill that lawmakers are considering would force creators who make more than $150,000 off their kids to set aside 15% in a trust fund for them. It would also allow those kids to have their content removed if they choose after they turn 18 years old. Coming up next, they live their lives looking after us and making sure that we get the care that we need. But tonight, a nurse in Florida is fighting for her life after a patient broke every bone in her face in a savage hospital attack. Now that patient is a prisoner, and the victim's family wants to know why he was in her hospital to begin with. The nurse's daughter, who is also a doctor, joins me live after a break. Ask anybody in medicine and they'll tell you that nurses are the backbone of most hospitals. They generally dedicate their lives to caring for and comforting their patients, which is why a story in Florida is so heart-stopping. A registered nurse at a hospital in West Palm Beach was tending to a patient last week when suddenly, out of the blue, that patient unexpectedly jumped up on the bed, lunged at her, and beat her so savagely that every bone in her face was broken. The attack was so vicious, it is likely that the nurse will never be able to see again. Her name is Lilama Lal, and fair warning, I'm about to show you a picture of her in intensive care, and it is graphic. Lilama's family says that she is still intubated 1 week later, and she is fighting for her life. And her attacker, he is not in the hospital anymore, that's for sure. Stephen Scantlebury was in a courtroom today instead, appearing before a judge and charged with attempted second-degree murder. He was denied both bail and house arrest. Police say he was at Lilama's hospital as a Baker Act patient, which, if you know what that is, it means he was being treated and held for mental health reasons. By the way, here's the 911 call from the hospital staff.
Sheriff's Office, 911.
We had a Baker Act beat a staff member unconscious, now running around the building.
Oh, my God. It's absolute chaos.
Okay, where is the injured nurse?
The nurse is in the floor.
The nurse is on the floor. Is she bleeding?
Yes.
Did he hit somebody with the scissors? Did he hurt somebody with the scissors?
Yes.
He stabbed a nurse?
You want to worry.
Okay, does he still have the scissors, yes or no?
Yes.
So they assaulted the employee until they passed out? Yeah, unconscious. I'm not worried about that part. I need the Baker I dealt with. And this could be nearly a fatality.
You should know that here he is running after the hospital. He had hurled all sorts of slurs, allegedly, racial slurs, so there's a hate crime here. Stephen Scantlebury fled on foot but did not get far. Here's the video of it. It was a takedown in the middle of the road by police that finally ended this insanity. I'm joined now by that nurse's daughter, Dr. Cindy Joseph, who is also a neurologist. With Cindy is the family's attorney, Karen Terry. Dr. Cindy Joseph, thank you so much, and I am so sorry that you and your family are going through this. Do you have any updates tonight? How is your mom?
So my mom is still in the ICU. I don't think there's any plans for them to take her off the ICU. She has a Dopphoff in place, which helps her eat. She has an endotracheal tube in her throat. She's on the ventilator for now. The other day, they tried to take her off the ventilator. She was okay for a little bit, but then she decompensated and had to be put back on. More recently today, they have her off for a few hours. So far, she seems to be doing okay. So just hoping this time she's able to remain off of it, for some time. She's really scared. She's in a lot of pain. She has all these tubes in her, in her body. She's not sure what's going on. She's very independent. So this is a state that she hates. I know it, but we're trying to take each day as it comes and just dealing with each day, day by day.
I mean, Cindy, thank God she has you for a daughter as a doctor, as a neurologist. But at the same time, are you oscillating between having a medical hat on and then just trying to be a daughter and process everything that's happening?
It's really hard, to be honest. This is the first time I've been home out of the hospital in some days. It's hard because whenever something happens, I think of the worst possible scenario and my mind just goes to that. The first night she was there, she was very unstable. I was so scared. I thought that would be the end of her, So I think with my background, it's really hard because I expect the worst every time something happens. My mind automatically goes to the worst case scenario. At the same time, I'm trying my best to advocate for her as well as, all healthcare workers. This shouldn't have happened. It was definitely preventable. I'm really disappointed in the hospital system that this happened to her. My mom's been working there for 20 plus years. She's devoted her entire career to this hospital. And the fact that this was able to happen at a healthcare facility, which should have proper security, is beyond me.
Karen, this is probably a good time for you to jump in as an attorney. The reporting that we have is that this patient was a Baker Act patient. There are all sorts of guardrails that are supposed to be in place if he even should have been at this hospital. And not only that, there's an additional layer here that he was allegedly hurling racial epithets, which makes this a hate crime. Weigh in on everything, like every front that we are now facing with regard to what happened to the Dalai Lama.
Sure. I think this case is a clear example of the HCA hospital system putting profits over safety. HCA made a conscious decision to hire untrained, unarmed, and an inadequate number of security personnel to handle their entire hospital, Palms West Hospital. And they put them on the first floor only. I believe there was only one security officer for the entire hospital. And Layla and the perpetrator were up on the third floor with no security whatsoever anywhere in sight. And that is just a conscious disregard and reckless indifference to the life, safety, and welfare of the patients as well as the employees. This was not a Baker Act facility. The employees were not trained on how to deal with violent, aggressive perpetrators like this gentleman was. He was exhibiting aggressive behavior from the moment he walked into Palms West Hospital. They had every opportunity to get him out of there to a Baker Act facility that could have handled him properly. And they didn't do so in a timely fashion.
I had to read the details of this case twice because I thought I missed something. What set him off? Was there anything, or was this just someone who was so emotionally disturbed it didn't matter who was in front of him?
It's hard to know. He did have a prior record back in 2017 in Canada of a felony. He did do jail time. And what happened between 2017 and 2025, I do not know. I think we're going to learn that answer in the criminal case, which is pending now.
Cindy, does your mom have any memory? Does she know what happened to her?
So I think she does remember because when she kind of came to a little bit, I didn't want to tell her what happened because I thought she probably forgot. I didn't want to bring back those horrid, that horrid time for her. But I told her she had an accident. And when I said that, she shook her head like very angrily. So then I asked her, do you remember being at Palms West? And she went like this. Then I asked her, do you remember what happened at Palms West before you were hospitalized? And she nodded yes. Right now, she can't talk, so I think it's going to be hard to definitively say how much she does remember until she can talk and communicate that with us.
Can you show me the motion that she made? We just had full pictures up, and I just want to be able to see. You said she did this, but I couldn't see what you did. Did she motion with?
When I asked her, I told her she had an accident because I didn't want her to relive that horrid time. And she was like this, like kind of angrily in her face. Then I asked her, do you remember being at Palms West? And she was like this. Then I asked her, do you remember what happened right before you were hospitalized? And she said yes. So I'm assuming she has some recollection of it, but until she can, regain the ability to talk, it's going to be hard to say what extent she remembers and how much she remembers in detail.
Cindy, you also were in court today, and you had an opportunity. It's incredible at this early juncture in the legal process. You had an opportunity to address Stephen Scantlebury directly. What did you say?
For me, it was empowering somewhat. I was told that he was going to remain in custody without bond, but I had prepared something because I wanted to get it off of my chest and kind of get it out there. Seeing him for the first time was very difficult. I couldn't get the image of this much bigger, much stronger guy beating my mom repeatedly out of my head. I basically told them that she's a healthcare worker dedicated 20 plus years to, helping others, and she didn't deserve this. He overpowered her without giving her the chance to even defend herself. She didn't scream. Nobody heard her, which means he attacked her quite quickly, didn't get a chance for her to fight back or even try to call for help. I personally I don't feel like he should be released because my family and me are constantly going to be looking over our back to see if we're going to be attacked again. So having him in custody without bond for now, I'm very happy they made that decision. We feel like that was the right decision for them to make for our safety.
Big prong of being released on any kind of bail is danger to the community. And I think that box is checked. Dr. Cindy Joseph, gosh, you're just a remarkable daughter, and your mom is so lucky to have you. I'm so sorry again that you're going through this with your family. I want to thank you so much for bringing your mom's story to us, and also Karen Terry, I appreciate your insight as well. Keep us updated. Let us know how your mom's doing, okay?
We will. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
Thank you so much. So appreciate that. And it is just one of those things you cannot understand it, and I don't know that we ever will, but we're going to try. Coming up next. It is wealthy, and it's discreet, and home to some of the greatest minds on the planet. Yet Princeton, New Jersey, isn't immune from murder and mystery, and tonight they've got a biggie. A former collegiate soccer star beaten and knifed to death in his $1 million apartment. The family cat knifed to death, too. Police did not have to look far for a suspect, but if the man they charged really did it, the mystery becomes why? Why would a big brother do such a thing? We'll go live to Princeton next.
Trouble breathing and rash. Get help if you have trouble breathing, swelling of the face, mouth, tongue, or throat. Common side effect is nausea. When migraine takes your time, take Nurtec. Ask your doctor about Nurtec ODT.
Nobody likes murder, but Princeton, New Jersey, one of the wealthiest towns in America and home to one of the greatest universities in the world, really doesn't like murder. It just isn't done. Except sometimes. Even in Princeton, it is. Over the weekend, somebody took a knife and a golf club to a young business analyst named Joseph Hurtgen in a ritzy apartment near Princeton University. For reasons I cannot imagine, the attacker decided to also kill the pet cat. Hurtgen was just 26 years old and a former soccer star at the University of Michigan. Police rushed to the scene in unmarked cars after a 911 call from the victim's big brother, Matthew. Matthew Hurtgen said that there was a fire and a dead body in the apartment. That big brother, Matthew, is 31 years old and is also a former college soccer star from Wesleyan University in Connecticut. But tonight, big brother Matthew is a defendant charged with murder in the first degree, along with animal cruelty and weapons offenses. And the question no one can answer is, if he did, in fact, bludgeon and slash his own baby brother to death and then turn his wrath on his brother's cat, what the hell set him off? His police record to date includes nothing more than traffic tickets and one DUI. NewsNation correspondent Caitlin Becker is in Princeton tonight. She joins me now live. Do you have any further details that can help anybody understand how this possibly could have happened, Caitlin?
It's such a disturbing story, Ashleigh. You have this very well-to-do family, 3 brothers total. From what we understand with our reporting here, they all lived in this apartment, which is a bit of a misnomer. It's a very high-end condo complex, possibly even with their parents. But, you know, Matthew had been showing some disturbing behavior online, in the months prior to this incident. There was a poem that had been posted back in September that was pretty brutal when viewed through the lights of what this crime is. He described blood oozing, suffocation, death in this very long poem that you're seeing on the screen here. And, you know, art can be dark, but as you're thinking about this brutal crime, it does seem to raise a lot of questions. And then just before the murders, you see a selfie that was posted on Facebook, and there's a cat toy next to his face there in this selfie, which just leads to a lot more questions than answers here, Ashleigh. But I have to tell you, everyone in this area has been very quiet. You could hear a pin drop out here right now. There are not a lot of residents. And so no one's really talking about what had transpired here, but you see that last really kind of creepy photo of him laying on the ground, that sort of vacant expression in his face.
Well, he looks very, very different now in this picture and in his mugshot than from, you know, his picture with Wesleyan across his sweatshirt, just an entirely different person. So the other question I wanted to ask you about, I get it. Some communities are very tight-lipped about stuff that happens, and Princeton, it seems, is one of them. They seemed there to have wiped this clean. This whole police action happened very quickly, very quietly, almost as though nothing to see here.
It's exactly what it was like. The scene outside of this complex was totally normal today, despite the fact that there was a cleaning crew out front, and that cleaning crew was a crime scene cleaner who was basically in and out earlier today, trying to make no waves, not talk to anyone. Now, just up these stairs behind me is where the actual condo was, and when we went up there, we were booted out pretty quickly. No one wanted to talk. We wanted to knock on some doors, talk to some neighbors, try to get an idea of what happened, and security came and said neighbors who we never even saw were complaining that we were up there. And when we talk about a community like Princeton not seeing something like this, there have been 4 murders in the last 40 years, nothing in the last 4 out here. So it's a very rare occurrence, but you would never know driving by that there was anything untoward that had happened. But I can't stress again, Ashleigh, how quiet it is out here. I can't imagine if a crime as brutal as what happened was being described, that you couldn't hear it. I mean, the bludgeoning allegedly happened with a golf club. There was a knife charge in there as well. So you have 2 grown men, allegedly, as well as an animal. I have to believe that someone heard something, because it truly is such a quiet community out here, and very, very expensive. The condos behind me, some of them are 3-4 stories, retailing for about $2.4, $2.5 million. And rents in this complex alone are something like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, Ash.
Wow, it is so bizarre. Let us know when you find out something else, because only you can do it. I know it. Caitlin Becker, thank you so much for this. Appreciate it. Okay, folks, still to come. These loafers sent the internet into a frenzy over the weekend, probably because the bare feet inside them belonged to one Luigi Mangione. Why the accused CEO murdered her has suddenly become a fashion luminary in court. Plus, what all the fashion mags honestly are writing about him for real. That's next. Cover fashion about as often as Women's Wear Daily covers crime, which means not very much. But this is one of those nights, and Luigi Mangione is one of those stories. Not since Bruno Mali got years of free promotions off of O.J. Simpson has a murder suspect's footwear been as discussed, as admired, and as coveted as Luigi's loafers. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. At the accused CEO killer's latest appearance in court, his shackles were overshadowed by the bare ankles inside the brown loafers that pretty much broke the internet. Google searches for Luigi Mangione loafers shot up 1,400%, and then came the headlines. GQ declared Luigi Mangione went sockless at his pretrial court hearing. And Women's Wear Daily, yes, Women's Wear Daily, chimed in with this one. Luigi Mangione's loafers, outfit, and ankles go viral as his unexpected fashion influence persists after latest court appearance. No shade to Luigi, but he didn't exactly invent murder chic. Ted Bundy and even the Menendez brothers often look like they stepped out of a Macy's catalog, and need I remind you where they ended up. By the way, speaking of, I've got a big new podcast, and it is coming out tomorrow. If you like Scamanda, I've got the host and creator of the podcast and the Hulu and ABC series, Charlie Webster. She's going to join me on Drop Dead Serious tomorrow. So wherever you get your podcasts, or if you like to watch it on YouTube, check it out. Drop Dead Serious tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Cuomo's next.
Welcome to NewsNation. 3 points as discussed. First, something outside the box. Ever hear the phrase, in loco parentis? Yes, from the Hamilton song, My Shot, I'm a tailor's apprentice, and I got you all knuckleheads in loco parentis. But also from the law and government. In loco parentis means in place of the parent. And we use it when there's a duty to act in the best interests of the child. But it also applies to how government acts in care of the citizenry. Okay? Now, this is tricky.